The Princess Royal is the newest C-drama that I've been watching. Mai Mai was really spellbinding to me in Amidst the Snowstorm of Love, along with Leo Wu. I reviewed that show very much so and have plenty of podcasts talking about it, and I really liked her and her portrayal. But in this show, she is wildly, and I mean wildly different. But it's refreshing kind of different. I'm very, very curious about how this show is gonna go. The Princess Royal, I believe, is slated to have 40 episodes. But it has a lot of tropes that I do enjoy when they are portrayed very well. Has a very, very interesting mix of enemies to lovers trope and second chance romance trope and some time traveling elements. So these are all very interesting, intertangled into the Princess Royal, which I believe was adapted from a novel. And yeah, I want to talk about it a bit more. Hi, I'm Monique. I am the host of Off by Purple Heart podcast, where I talk to you about K-dramas, C-dramas, BTS, and so much more. We're in the thick of summer right now, and there should be a lot more C-drama projects coming in the pipeline. The Princess Royal, I see, is picking up some heat and picking up some traction. As I mentioned, Mai Mai from Amidst the Snowstorm of Love, Zhang Linghe. She is in this show and she is playing the title character of the Princess Royal. And I am very fascinated by it because it is giving very strong enemies to lovers trope. When we are first introduced in the first episode, as far as my first impressions go, because I've only watched about 2 episodes of it thus far, we start off in present day, and the Princess Royal, the female lead character, is age 40, which is hilarious because the actress has such a baby face. She's beautiful and she's very young and youthful, and even though her demeanor and her vocal inflections come across more mature and grounded, especially in the state of mind that she's in the first 10 minutes of this first episode of the show, she still looks so young. So I think that part's really funny, but I don't know if it would have come across well if they cast an older actress to play the 40-year-old version of her. But in any case, 40 is still very young too, so I'm not trying to make it sound like 40 is like you're geriatric. not that there's anything wrong with being geriatric, it's just very funny. Like she just anyway, we're in present day. She's 40 years old, and the Princess Royal, and I will be going into some spoilers, but I don't think this is going to be very spoiler heavy. Like a lot of this is in like the synopsis, and you get the general gist of it very early on. She is on the brink of death. She is slowly dying, and it seems to be that her husband, the consort, the prince consort, have a very, very bitter relationship. There is no love between them anymore, and they're completely at different ends of the spectrum. And the show heavily leans into the idea of you believing that her husband is the cause of her slowly dying, even though I'm pretty sure that is not the case at all. But their relationship is very bitter, it's very toxic. They no longer are in love with one another, and it was at the point where they were looking to have an actual divorce, and it looks like she has another male suitor lined up, and he's literally at her bedside as she's taking her last breaths. And then we see her visibly cough up blood, and everything fades to black. So very dramatic opening into the show. Then the second act of the show happens, and she wakes back up, and she's transported back into time to when she was 18 years old. With all the knowledge that she has as a 40-year-old woman, why she has been sent back in time, they're not really sure yet. But she catches on very quickly that things are not as they appear, that things are very off. She finds out that she is 18, and it's just at that point in time in history where her father, the emperor, is very much alive, and he thinks it's time for her to be married. So all the male suitors that she was once to court are now all coming back into the picture, and this includes her husband, who in this time frame would be 20. And the show gets very interesting because she has now all the knowledge, and she is under the assumption that her husband wanted her dead and is instrumental into her dying at age 40. So she is at a whole different playing field. And let me tell you, the actress is so good. Mai Mai is so good because I really bought into her, very shy, very demure, very coy portrayal that she gave in Amidst Snowstorm of Love. Here she is like a viper. She has zero patience for her husband in the past, back at 18. And I'm telling you, like, she is relentlessly bullying the hell out of her husband. And and at first it seems like, man, she's being such an asshole. She's being such a bully to her husband. But we have to put ourselves in her shoes. She doesn't have all the information lined up yet. And I'm to believe with later episodes, she's going to learn a lot more as to what led to the events that ended up taking her life. And I think her husband is going to be vindicated in a big way. But anyways, she bullies the hell out of her man, the hell out of him. And it's so funny because I know that there's going to be people that are probably not going to enjoy her character for a bit. She is not very nice. Like, she is mean. I can even give you like an example. She knows that her husband is allergic to a certain type of citrus fruit, and she now, as the 18-year-old that has traveled back in the past, has now come back into contact with him. And as I said, it's that time where she is supposed to be picking a male suitor to be married, and he is one of the eligible bachelors, and it's like everything plays out exactly how it did before in her memory. And she's like, no, I'm gonna make life very hard for you. And there's a point where they have a meeting, and she quite literally tells him, yeah, why don't you eat this? It's so me. And I think it's super entertaining. The other piece that I think is brilliant within the show as well, and I haven't mentioned yet, and yes, this is spoilery as well, it turns out that her husband has also time traveled, has gone back into time with her as well. So he is also aware of all the events that happened between them. And towards the end of episode 2, which is about as much as I've watched so far, they're both coming to the realization that, oh my God, this is not 18-year-old, her, and this is not 20-year-old him. Oh my God, they must be from the future, unless they're being super diabolical right now. And they're coming to this slow realization, and the show kind of ends itself on a cliffhanger on that part. So there's a lot of toxicity there between them, and I'm sure it's not going to be resolved anytime soon. Also, the Princess Royal, she has her interest in a male suitor who we are introduced to in the first episode in the future, and they seem like they're in love. But already there seems to be some hints that this male suitor that she really likes, Sue, there's something about him that's a little bit off, but we don't know the full dynamics yet. But I have reason to believe that he might be an integral piece as to why she died in the future. But I don't have any backing or information to confirm that line of thinking as of yet. It might be red herring for all I know. But he is not everything he seems, but she's completely enraptured in him, even though as she has traveled back into the past, this male suitor that she ends up with in the future already seems kind of skittish towards her and actually initially rejects her, which is very humbling. But the dynamic between her and her husband-to-be, who she hates, is so funny. So it's truly giving an enemies to lovers vibe. They are both very distrustful as they're coming to learn that, oh my God, this person might actually have traveled back in the past with me. And I'm really interested to see how that interplay is going to continue going forward. And it's a second chance romance because, of course, they're going to be endgame. She's going to end up back in the relationship with her husband. And I'm kind of hoping that all the miscommunication has happened between them that soured their relationship in their first timeline will be corrected in the second timeline. So while we haven't been given concrete information as to how or why she's traveled back into the past as her 18-year-old self, I do believe one of the major lessons she needs to learn is all the misunderstandings that she's had with her husband that has allowed to erode and ultimately destroy the relationship with her husband, and them coming back and reuniting together and having that much stronger of a bond and love. And I'm looking forward to see how they play that and if they're going to be able to drag out a delicious tension between them up until episode 40, or they're going to play their hand too early and it ends up kind of being boring and fizzle out as the show goes on. That remains to be seen, but both actors are strong. I like Mai Mai in this. She's really surprising me. Like, just complete 180 from the character she just played. And obviously, she's an actor. This is what actors do. They should be able to play any archetype and slip seamlessly into that skin. But it's just because I'm just off the back of watching Amidst the Snowstorm of Love not too long ago. It's just really rewarding to see how drastically different the character arcs are. I love that. And it's nice version of second chance romance too, in this like fantasy type setting. And I'm really curious on how they're gonna play it. I love a good enemies to lovers slow burn. I love it so much. When you can do enemies to lovers well, to me that's like the pinnacle of romance, and that's like my elixir. That is my kind of entertainment. I love that so much. So I'm going to continue to watch The Princess Royal, and I might continue to do some podcast updates about it. But let me know in the comment section if you're watching via YouTube. Have you been checking out The Princess Royal? What are your thoughts about it, if you have any at all? How cool is it that her acting portrayal in this show is just so wildly different? Like, she's playing definitely a more gray character than in Amidst the Snowstorm of Love, which I think is going to be fun for her to play around with. And she looks stunning. Like, the costume pieces, the makeup, everything is just gorgeous with the show. If you're listening via Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I love you. I appreciate you so much. So much. You have no idea. Until the next episode. Bye, guys.